You get home with every intention of working on it. Then the evening disappears again. And you know this feeling quite well. It happens to you all the time. The question is why? Well, the real problem here is that it's not a matter of discipline like everybody likes to assume. Your brain is simply depleted. And there are 26 years of research that explain exactly why, but nobody's ever told you. Right? And again, this is something very important. This is what's going to be covered throughout this video, but also what you can do to fix it as well. Now, understand that the science is real, right? This application is very practical. There was a 1998 study about Meister and all, one of the most refined findings in social psychology. There are over 600 studies that confirm this finding as well. Then there was an update recently in 2024 where Bob Meister himself reviewed 26 years of follow-up research, what held, what was refined, where the science stands now, right? And by the end of this video, you're going to have a system that you can use tonight. Not some theory, not some like vague woo-woo motivational, what's the thing people do? Projecting? No. I'm trying to think of the word for it. Manifesting, right? There's nothing manifesting going on. This is going to be concrete. This is going to be real. Something that you can use and implement today. Get nothing too complicated going on here. Right? So, understand that all self-control as determined by the Baumeister study draws from one shared limited resource. And generally speaking, the more you use it in one area, the less you'll have of it to use somewhere else, right? And again, this resource is shared, right? It's not, okay, I have it, one pocket over here and one pocket over there. No, it's all together. The more you use it in one area of your life, the less you're going to have it to use for others. So, resisting your phone at 10 a.m. and trying to focus at 7 p.m. draw from the same account, right? It's not separate pockets here. It's all cohesive. It's one big storage silo that gets drained consistently throughout the day. But what exactly does that mean? Well, the translation here is that your job owns the account and your evening gets what's left, right? Again, think of it kind of like a bank account, right? You start off the day with $1,000, but throughout the day you've got to make all these purchases. So I gotta buy this thing, gotta pay this bill, gotta get this food over here, gotta pay that guy for that job he did, right? Throughout the day, the bank account is slowly draining, right? And by the end of the day, that bank account is empty because you constantly spent and spent and spent and spent and spent. So, unfortunately, willpower is not unlimited. It's a very depletable resource. Again, shared across every act of self-control, whether it's making a decision, regulating our emotions, getting things done, right? Willpower is used at each and every single stage. So every meeting, every time you get frustrated, every judgment, every time you try and resist that scroll, that Netflix pull, no junk food tonight, I'm on a diet, right? All of that is draining your willpower. Excuse me. So by the time that the window opens up, or the thing you're building, right? That skill you're trying to learn, the business you're trying to build, right? The side project you've been working on. By the time you actually sit down to get that thing done, well, that account is now nearly empty. It's not weakness. It's basic mathematics, right? Yeah. And this is something you probably experience as well, right? Going throughout the entire day. Finally, time to work for myself, right? Time to get this personal thing done. It's time to build for me. But you can't. Because you spent all of your energy, all of it got drained by someone else's priorities. And one example being one of the 1998 experiments, right? 5 minutes of resisting cookies cut persistence in half. This is the radish study, right? So there were some hungry participants, right, put into a room smelling full of freshly baked cookies, right? Half of them only ate radishes. The other half ate the cookies. So all of them then worked on secretly unsolvable puzzles. So they got put into another room, said, hey, solve this puzzle, but they didn't know that the puzzle was unsolvable. So the group who ate the radishes only lasted around almost 8.5 minutes when it came to trying to solve the puzzle. But the group who ate the cookies, the group who did not have to resist the cookies being in that room, smelling like cookies, it lasted nearly, well, actually a little bit over double that. Almost 19 minutes they were able to last, trying to figure out this unsolvable puzzle, right? Meaning that, within that 5 minutes of resisting, the group that only ate the radishes, their willpower depleted by 50%. It's not that they chose to quit, but their resource, that willpower resource, that well, had already been spent by the time they got to the task of trying to solve the puzzle. And this is something tangible. It's not just some bro science, but this is literal psychological research that's been done on this. Again, the radish study, right? The resource got shared, but the domain doesn't really matter. Again, kind of some stuff I mentioned earlier, right? That 5 minutes of impulse control cut the percentage by more than half, right? Again, the kind of core mechanism, the core mechanism, what you need to understand is that they had spent that resource resisting that smell of the cookie, even though, it's right there. I just want to grab it, but no, I gotta eat these radishes, right? Due to exercising that impulse control, it was drawing from this willpower tank. So what this looks like for you is your radish, you eating the radishes is 8, maybe 10 hours long, right? Being at work, resisting your phone, all these frustrations, all these context switches, right? Everything that's going on from a day to day, it's draining you, drawing at your willpower, drawing at this limited tank, constantly being depleted throughout the day, right? But again, resisting cookies, that's one thing. But what about making decisions? Well, there was another study, also in that same 1998 Baumeister study. This was the decision study. So participants chose to write a speech on either position, whether it was like going for something or being against something. They were rather given the option to decide, okay, I will be for or against this, or they would just decide something. Then they did the puzzle task again, right? This unsolvable puzzle. So to the ones who freely chose, they were able to kind of do the speech roughly like 14 minutes without quitting. Those who were given the speech, like, hey, you're going to be speeching for this, you're going to be speeching against this, they were able to last 23 minutes, right? The control group was able to last 25 minutes, right? But the content of the decision was irrelevant. It doesn't matter, what the speech was about exactly. But the act of choosing is what determined how long they were able to do it, right? This decision fatigue is very real, right? Judges make worse rulings even late in the day for exactly that very same reason, right? Because of all those decisions they've been making previously. Once it gets later in the day, just not too much going on in the noggin here. So again, it wasn't what they decided. It was the act of deciding in and of itself. Every choice to work is a withdrawal. Every choice you make throughout the day, every decision you have to take, it's constantly pulling, constantly draining away at this, again, very limited, constantly depleting resource. Again, so again, kind of just explaining what happened again. Those who freely chose the speech, after doing the puzzle, they were kind of able to last, they quit 14 minutes in. But those assigned, they were able to last 23 minutes. Again, wasn't the content, but the fact that they had to choose had depleted this mental resource. So, the mechanism, what you need to understand, is that responsible decision making draws from the same resource as willpower. Owning the decision cost, even when it's a very small decision, right? Kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, right? You make it up small decisions over the course of a day. Eventually, you just can't anymore, right? You're just burnt out. I can't do this. I need to sleep. Let me hop on my phone. Let me scroll some reels, play Clash Royale, right? Again, essentially falling into this path of least resistance due to not having anything left to resist, right? And again, it's not even just decisions, right? There's a third withdrawal that most people actually, unfortunately, never see coming. And this one being an emotion study, again from that same Baumeister study in 1998. This being the emotion study, right? So suppressing your emotions at work costs you your output quality when you get home, right? So depletion doesn't just make you quit faster, it makes your work worse. It lowers the quality, it lowers the efficiency of the work that you do. Um, and again, I'll kind of explain this on the next slide. But so what ended up happening was that emotion suppressors solved rather those who were told to suppress their emotions, right? They were able to solve almost 5 anagrams out of 13. But those who freely solved, or those who were rather expressed freely, were able to solve almost roughly 7, right? So the fact that again they had to that constant choice of like, whether am I suppressing my emotion or am I not, it reduced their output quality, right? The more you actively had to suppress something, um, the less likely you were to continue solving the anagrams in a later study, right? Going back, I can explain this a little bit more. But again, so participants were either chosen, they were told to watch a video, right? It was I believe it was a funny video, but half of them were told to suppress their emotions. The other half were just, hey, just let them loose, right? Those who did not have to suppress were able to solve more anagrams, again, because they weren't actively draining that resource or having to like suppress this emotion that they were feeling. Again, this is very tangible stuff, right? It's not some like vague woo, but this is real. This exists. What you need to understand here is that after regulating, maintaining your emotions, hiding, modifying, whatever you need to do throughout the day, again, depleting that same resource, staying professional is unfortunately quite expensive. So, again, for you, navigating the office politics, managing your reactions, you don't say what you're thinking all the time, right? That regulation costs exactly what you need at 6 p.m. when you get home, and now it's time to work for yourself, right? So, that's 3 separate withdrawals happening simultaneously every single day. But now we need to understand what was added in, and when Baumeister ended up coming back during the 2024 study. So, 26 years later, the science got a lot stronger. The picture got a lot clearer. Ego depletion is undeniably real. Indeed, among the very best replicated phenomena in social psychology, and this is what Baumeister himself said in 2024. Right? So, roughly between 600 to 800 published findings, but none of them being significant enough to sit in the opposite direction. Right? There was even one successful multi-set replication, one of only 4 across all social psychology. I think there were like 36 attempts or something like that. Which I'm not like a big psychology nerd, but I'm pretty sure that's pretty significant to the fact that being like one of the 4 successful out of like 36 that had taken place, right? But again, what really important is the goal here, right? Ego depletion is undeniably real. Throughout the day, there is this constant depletion of your ego, which affects your productivity later on in the evening. And again, there were 3 findings that kind of are going to change how you're going to understand your evenings. First, there's the glutamate buildup. There was a 2022 neuroimaging study that found that glutamate accumulating in your prefrontal cortex after a full day of cognitive work, right? Cognitive work being you consciously doing things, you like actively making the decisions, actively doing the work, right? Your prefrontal cortex, the region of the brain that, again, is running your self-control. After a lot of this buildup, what tends to happen is that you make more impulsive decisions, meaning that the more you actively use self-control throughout the day, the worse your decisions are going to become. Now, the problem with this is that it creates a very interesting cycle, because being in conflict will end up depleting you, but being depleted produces more conflict. So now you're in like this negative feedback loop, which isn't really fun for anybody. And essentially, right, the brain doesn't just run out, it conserves, right? After it exerts enough, it kind of switches the track to, I need to start preserving, right? I need to maintain the state of status quo. I need to do something to where I'm not constantly being depleted. So it's not that you're empty, but you're being managed by your own brain. Your brain switches to survival mode. It's like, okay, I've drained myself enough. I need to shift gears. I need to protect what I have left, which drastically changes your actions for the remainder of the day, right? Again, this is not just not fake, right? This is like genuine research that proves this, that throughout the day, the more decisions you make, the more likely you are to make worse decisions, or just have less self-control, or be able to commit yourself to doing something you actually care about. Again, This is like the pivotal moment, right? Just making the problem clear, right? So previously, oh, maybe I'm just not motivated. I don't want it bad enough, right? But this is very scientific. This is very concrete, right? So now we understand what the constraint is. Here's exactly how you design around it. So, again, there's going to be 5 fixes here, but each one is directly targeting a specific depletion mechanism. And understand these are not productivity tips, right? Each one, again, it's like addressing a specific mechanism based on the research from both the Baumeister studies. Right? So, I've wasted enough time explaining this. Let's get to the meat potatoes. The first one is building a transition, not a routine, right? That switch from job mode to build mode doesn't happen automatically. It's something that needs to be deliberately engineered. Because your brain at 5 p.m., 6 p.m. when you get up for work, it's still in conservation mode. It has not received a signal to shift, right? Get out of that mode into something, producing something more personal, something more genuine. So if you go, straight from the job directly to, your dance work on the scene, whatever the case is, it's like trying to go into a sprint without warming up. Yeah, you might be able to get somewhere, but is it healthy? Is it effective? Are you going to be at your peak? No, right? Again, there's even a study from the 2024 Baumeister finding that shows that psychological detachment from work reduces the depletion carryover into home hours, right? So again, a transition ritual is how you did psychologically detach yourself from the workday, right? So not just stopping physically, you need to mentally disengage, right? Once that mental disengagement, I don't know if that's a word, this mental disengagement is taking place, it's going to be a word now. Then you're able to sit down, isolate, and actually make significant progress towards your goals. So, transition protocol, you need to signal the shift. Don't assume it's going to happen on its own. It's not going to happen on its own. This, again, you need to deliberately engineer this. You need to bring it into concrete existence. Again, the problem is that you move from obligation mode, listening to your boss, whatever the case is, to your desk and wonder, why can I not focus? Why can't I get this done? Am I not motivated? Do I not want it bad enough? Am I just bad at it? No. Brain chemistry, right? Your brain is still conserving, so we need to signal. The simplest fix is a 10-minute transition ritual. Same sequence every evening. This is not some motivational woo-woo manifesting. Okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to chant aspirations in my mirror for 10 minutes. I'm going to get into work. No, this is, think of it like a neurological on-ramp onto the highway of personal efficiency. Right? Again, so psychological detachments, what I mentioned earlier, right, reduces how much workplace depletion carries over when you're at home, when you're trying to get that intentional work done, right? So the ritual, again, this is your detachment. So what you are going to do tonight after watching this video, because if you watch this far, I'm sure this problem is serious enough for you to need to do something about it. Step 1, close every work tab, right? Step 2, change one physical cue, right? Leave the room, change clothes, go for a drink. Personally, I like taking a walk. Walks are great. Nature is great. You really can't beat it. But then step 3, read your one priority out loud. So at this point, what am I going to do? I'm going to learn this new language. I'm going to work on the business. I'm going to learn the piano. Right? Finish this side project, whatever that is for you. Everybody's going to have something different. You need to name what that priority is. This is usually 9 times out of 10 going to be the highest leverage task. It's going to bring you closer to this idolized, version, or this thing you're trying to achieve, right? And again, this ritual does not have to be long, but it does need to be consistent, because consistency builds the cue response loop. Cue response loop being, the cue is like, okay, I get off work. The response is, now I'm going into my transition ritual. The more that kind of cause and effect becomes automatic, the more likely you are to actually use those after work hours to get meaningful things done. So, the second fix is you need to set a floor, not a standard. Why? Because high standards on a depleted brain produce zero output. But a floor is always going to produce something, right? It's just kind of addressing the all or nothing trap, right? We tend to have the mental misconception, oh, if I can't do the full session, why even try? There's nothing worth doing at all, right? Again, because the session standard, this kind of metric that you've set for yourself, Normally, it's designed for a full tank. When you're fully motivated, when you're fully energized, no decision fatigue, your willpower hasn't been drained, you're going into this at full capacity, like a fully charged battery. This is you in the morning, 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., right? Not at 7 p.m. after you got out of work, if you had to regulate all these emotions, deal with all these coworkers, do all these decisions, complete all these tasks. Now you're completely drained and expecting yourself to have the same output as you would first thing in the morning. It does not make any sense. Depleted brain is going to evaluate the full cost of a task before beginning. Then it quits before starting. Think of it like you just run a marathon and now you have to climb up a mountain, right? You're like, well, I just did all that. You want me to climb this mountain? I'm not doing that. Like, let me take a break. I'm not. Like, are you crazy? Are you insane? I'm not doing it, right? Weird. Like, the task appears like this mountain. You're not going to want to climb it. It's too much work, too much effort. I just expended all this effort. I'm not doing that. But imagine, first thing in the morning, okay, the mountain might seem a little bit more manageable, right? Or you might just, the mental appearance, right? It's no longer a mountain. Maybe it's like some hill or something, right? Like, well, that's pretty easy. Again, because you're fully energized, your mental conception of the task is going to be different than when you're completely drained, right? So the solution here, not to lower your ambition, it's not just quit, but lower the activation energy of beginning. Activation energy being the amount of energy required to start a chemical reaction, and generally speaking, the energy required to start is always going to be more than what is needed to maintain said reaction. So starting is always the hardest part, put simply. If you can make starting easier, you make everything easy. Again, kind of reiterating the problem here being that the goal you set for yourself was designed for a full tank. Obviously, at this point, you don't have a full tank. The fix is identifying a minimum execution standard. This is the least that you can do and still call it a win. And this is non-negotiable. This is predefined. This is what you use on the hard days. So if it's something like working out, instead of having your goal like, I'm going to get this whole workout done, I am going to go and I'm going to do one set, one exercise, right? I'll do my bench press and then I'm going home, right? And the thing with that is, generally speaking, you're going to go in there, you're going to do that one set. But now you're in the action, right? You've overcome the activation energy. And like I mentioned earlier, maintaining is always easier than starting. Once you trick yourself into starting, 9 times out of 10, you're just going to continue. Okay, I'm already here. I might as well keep going, right? Might as well finish it out. Might as well finish strong, right? Practically what this looks like is 20 minutes of real work. So one deliverable completed, no quality standard, just execution, right? What you're trying to do is maintain the floor. It's not the goal. This is just protection of your momentum. Because the second you let it slip, right? Just say, oh, I can't do it all and just end up not doing it. Now you're creating a negative habit. You're creating a bad habit, right? Whenever I feel like this, I'm not going to get the work done. Eventually, a day turns into 2, turns into a week, turns into a month of you not working on your goals at all. Then you have to rebuild all of your momentum from scratch yet again. Not ideal, especially if you're trying to become this, I suppose, better version of yourself. This person who has achieved, finished a side project, learned the language, built the business, or whatever the case is, was trying to do this thing. If you're losing months due to just negative cycles, obviously it's not good. But why this works again, that 20-minute session keeps your identity intact, right? Because now you maintain the identity, the self-concept of I am a person who gets this thing done no matter what happens. So when that is your identity, your subconscious, your entire biology moves in a way to confirm it. So no matter what happens, you're going to get the thing done because that is simply who you are. But a full skipping, oh, I feel too tired, I'm depleted, yada, yada, yada. Well, now you're creating the identity that this thing will stop me from getting the work done. So when it happens again, or when something similar happens again, you're not going to get the work done. And then that becomes, I am someone who does not get the work done. Meaning, doesn't matter what happens, you're going to come home and you're not going to do anything because that's simply what your identity is directing you to do. Right? Your biology is simply going to confirm it. 0 days cost a lot more than minimum every single time, right? Continuity compounds, right? The more you do something, even if you do it like 5 minutes a day, it changes your identity. Identity is the most important thing that can be changed, because naturally, as humans, we're going to confirm the identity that we have of ourselves. Um, if I'm someone who is healthy, then I'm going to do things that make me healthy. I'm not going to go out and eat junk food and ice cream and cookies. You're going to catch me inside eating my rice and chicken and potatoes and broccoli and Brussels sprouts, right? Might not be the best tasting food, but because I'm someone who's healthy, that's what I naturally do. It's what my body naturally pushes me toward doing, right? I'm again to understand MESS, minimum execution standard, MES, MESS. Very simple. Next, pre-decide your one priority, right? This is deciding what to do when depleted costs what doing it requires, right? Again, this kind of connecting to the decision study as well, right? The act of choosing depletes not what is being chosen, right? So if you're sitting down at 7 p.m. and you're asking, what's the most important thing for me to do right now? That is actively draining your willpower, right? This is it is not good, right? You're just actively depleting yourself even further, right? By the time you decided, you spent the part that you needed to do the work in and of itself. So the fix isn't better decision making. It's moving the decision entirely from the session. So how exactly does one do that? Very simple. You pre-decide, right? The fix here being deciding in advance, whether it's the night before, the moment you wake up, whatever the case is, right? It needs to be written down. It needs to be tangible. It needs to be visible before you sit down to actually do it. So the session starts with execution rather than orientation and research and decision, right? In a nutshell, use the right brain for the right job, right? Again, the timing is often, always overlooked, right? At 9 a.m., your brain is fully functional. It's ready. It's not depleted. It's ready to execute, essentially. You're ready to decide things, ready to get things done. But by 7 p.m., again, you don't have all of that storage left, right? That the well has been drained, meaning what you have needs to be used towards execution, not deciding, not planning. Execute, get the thing done. And writing it down is very important. Why? Because if it's still in your mind, it's very vague. It's not concrete. It can change at the drop of a dime, right? But once it's written down, once it's in the physical space, it simply exists as it is. It can't be changed. You can't try and forget about it or negotiate your way out of it. It's simply there because that's what it is. And you're going to get it done. When do you decide? Very simple. End of the workday, not the morning when you sit down. That should be flipped, right? It should be in the morning, not the end of the workday when you're sitting down, right? Because at 9 a.m., your brain is able to choose very clearly, right? Again, you're like waking up, full energy, fully recharged. But at 7 p.m., your brain can't, using the right brain for the right job. And again, connecting this to the 1998 study, but again, moving the choice at the session, rather, choosing at the moment you need to get the thing done is like actively depleting your willpower reserves, right? If you decide beforehand, you can sit down, you can get straight to work. Fix numero 4 is protect the recovery window. What you do in the roughly 30 to 45 minutes before the session determines what the session itself will produce. Now, this one is more connected to Baumeister's 2024 study when he came back. Going over all those 26 years of research. Ultimately, depletion extends when recovery is poor, right? Recovery, poor, meaning like scrolling or like Netflix, video games, right? But you think, oh, I'm just taking a break, I'm just chill. Scroll a little bit and I'll get straight to work, right? You're just actively increasing your depletion, because that window between getting home and sitting down to work, it's the normally most mismanaged part of the evening, right? Because most people end up compounding the depletion with just mindless dopamine and don't even realize it, right? So the fix here is protecting the session before it starts, not trying to protect it during. Again, a lot of what I'm going to talk about here is kind of stuff that needs to be done in advance, because it's removing the decision, removing the depletion, removing the willpower from the equation in the moment where you need everything you have to get the work done. So, generally speaking, what ends up depleting those reserves is scrolling, right? Just a little impulse control, social conflict, content, right? High stimulation videos, even boredom to a sense is what depletes it, right? So your couch just sitting down, it's not neutral, right? But what partially will restore it, low stimulation physical activity, walking, stretching, mindfulness, right? All these, even if only just 5 minutes, are confirmed to counteract depletion effects. Another reason why I love walking so much, it's a restorative, especially when you're in nature, you're listening to the birds chirp, the sun is beaming down on your face, right? It's very, very calming, very restorative experience, right? And even when it comes to mindfulness, this is something this is a real thing as well, right? There was a brief mindfulness exercise that counteracted depletion effects in basketball free throws that was mentioned in the 2024 paper, right? So mindfulness counteracted depletion, getting buckets, right? We might not be getting buckets, we're getting metaphorical buckets by you getting the work done, right? You again making progress with that skill, starting your business, whatever the case is, right? So let's get some buckets. Let's have restorative rest, not scrolling on your phone, right? We all know, like, just from a base standpoint, that's probably not the best thing that you need to do. So again, the rule here is like no decision heavy content, no social media, low stimulation only, right? You're not relaxing, you're preparing, because this is where the session really begins. You can think, oh, it only starts when I'm sitting down working. No, it starts before that. Everything always starts before. It always starts in the preparation phase. So, last fix is stop collecting fixes. Seems a little bit counterintuitive, but stop collecting fixes. Install a container, because behaviors without structure are always going to collapse. It's just not a motivation problem. Again, the 4 fixes that I just mentioned, they're behaviors, right? Behaviors require decisions. Decisions deplete, right? So over time, even the right behaviors without a container to hold them are going to collapse, right? So at this stage, what you need is not more information, right? You need architecture, something that runs even when motivation is nowhere to be found, even when willpower is completely gone, even when you don't feel like it, when you're too tired, when everything's going wrong, right? When that container is there, it doesn't matter. Things are going to run as intended. So, understand, right? You're going to need some sort of evening architecture, in a sense, a system, right? So, again, the problem with fixes alone, again, is like each fix works, but each fix requires a decision to actually implement it. Over time, depletion compounds, right? So container, this would be a 30-day designed evening architecture. So transition evening architecture, transition protocol, MES, like one priority, recovery window, built once, then run, not maintained, running it. And this is exactly what I do with after hours, right? So what this is going to produce is execution that holds on depleted days, a streak that does not break on hard weeks, a version of you that builds consistently without needing to be at your best, without needing to be at the peak 24/7, right? It's just going to run because that's what the system was built to do. And again, this is exactly what after hours installed. It's not a course. It's not some kind of like motivational woo-woo. Yeah, you can do it, bro. You can get it done. Just believe in yourself. No, it's an execution system built for the specific condition that you are already in, right? Again, not too much like anything complex. There's like complicated and complex. Complex or complicated going on here, right? So, the real shit, right? Understand your brain is not broken. It's operating exactly as it was designed. So the problem was never your character. It was the constraint. But nobody showed you how to design and run it. Again, that about sums everything up, I believe. So, next steps, if you're a working professional who knows what you want to build but keeps losing the evening window before you get there, then click the first link in the description. Right? So again, apply to work with me after hours. I'll go over your application. If you're a good fit, you'll be able to book a call. We can see how we can work together, right? So, other than that, I hope you all found some value in this video. I hope you learned something new. Click this video here. It'll be somewhere on the screen if you want to learn something new. And like and subscribe if the science finally gave your struggle a name. Other than that, I will catch you on the next one. Peace.